There was question time. So I'm going to show you 4 questions that were asked by Dominic Ayini, Nelson Dafiamapo, James Agalga, and Akoto took his time to answer these questions. Nelson Dafiamapo had issues with the chairman of the committee because one of his questions was overruled. A bit of drama in there in Parliament. Let's go back to Parliament now and see the questions that came from the members of the committee after the presentation of the memorandum by Akoto Ampaw on the 17th.
The human rights issues that have been raised by the human rights advocates and Mr. Akoto Ampaw and his group. If you look at the Constitution, the human rights provisions are not absolute. Parliament can enact laws restricting rights if it can be shown that those restrictions are reasonably necessary for the promotion of public welfare. So I would have thought that you would take the specific provisions. Yes, I'm pointing to, clarification. So I would have thought that your group would have taken the individual specific provisions and shown us to what extent each of the provisions deviates from a reasonable restriction of a human right. I, for instance, will want further education from the proponents of the bill. And I'm now directing my question to the Reverend Father, that a provision of your bill that says that you can advocate that we should punish lesbianism, we should impose terms of imprisonment on any of the activities. You have a right to advocate that we should do that today. But after you have finished, I should not have a right tomorrow to say that we should change it. Can you explain why you should have the right today to advocate that we should pass a law, and then tomorrow I should not have a right to also start proposing that we should change the law? So some of the provisions also that you have proposed in the bill, I think, need to also be defended in the light of other constitutional provisions. You cannot say that gays and lesbians have a right to demonstrate, because no law accepts, in Ghana today, accepts gays and lesbians. Yeah. So if the law doesn't recognize the act, how do you identify yourself as the actors who then want to carry out a lawful demonstration? Because I haven't heard Akoto Ampaw address the issue of our current criminal legislation, which prohibits the act. Section 104, because Section 104 already prohibits the act, and it's already in the criminal legislation of Ghana. And I haven't heard you advocate that we should even delete that from our criminal legislation. So if we accept that standing in our criminal legislation today, it becomes difficult for anyone to say that a gay has a right. Because it is, as we speak, it is in our criminal legislation that that act is an offense, for which if you are arrested and prosecuted successfully, you will go to jail. So how is it that you can make a claim that you are gay and then you have a right?
And then he argues that there is no empirical evidence to support that principle, in that the recently conducted population census shows that in spite of the existence of LGBTQ community in Ghana, our population continues to increase. Now, I want to find out from him what empirical evidence he wants, because is it not factual? Is it not verifiable? Is it not real that LGBTQI+ cannot procreate? And if they cannot procreate, what empirical evidence do you need? Because in some other countries like Russia, which suffers population decreases, population decline, LGBTQI has been identified as one of the causes of the decline. So let's put things in proper perspective. So I want to know whether it's not verifiable, it's not real, it's not factual, that LGBTIQ-related activities cannot result in procreation.
My name is Akoto Ampaw. I'm also one of the sponsors of the bill. I listened carefully to Senator Akoto Ampaw during his presentation. He attacked the validity of the procedure used in laying the bill, particularly in impugning the right of the Speaker to proceed.
Honourable Member,
Yes.
I was going to tell Honourable Akoto Ampaw, that leg, if we can ignore, Mr. Akoto Ampaw, if we can ignore that leg, I say so because now the bill is before Parliament. So if you are looking at the procedure where the bill, and he used his words rightly, he says it ought not have been before Parliament. Now it's before us. So let's not go into that. I think we've gone past that stage. So if you have other bills, you can go on, and then Mr. Akoto Ampaw can ignore those points, and then we go on.
Chairman, with all due respect, he came to Parliament to make a presentation, and these are questions arising out of that presentation.
Honourable,
He has
I have ruled that we've gone past that, because I cannot determine that this bill should be taken away from the committee. I don't have that power.
I want to put to him.
No, it's not necessary, so let's move on.
Very well.
Yes.
Very well. But we are seeking to some clarification from him.
And I said it's moot. This exercise would be
very well.
exercise in free
Very
trade.
well. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to find out from Mr. Akoto Ampaw and his group whether independently they have conducted any fiscal impact analysis to determine or support its position that this bill, when it is successful and implemented, this is the quantum of money that will be expended in this implementation. Has it done that? That's one.
That question is overruled. It's the same thing going around. I overruled
Chairman,
that question.
It is not.
Shall we proceed?
Chairman.
He is not obliged to answer that question. I have overruled that question. Let's go forward. The Speaker had decided. The Constitution says in the opinion of the person presiding, and he has admitted that. Why do we go into that? There's a committee of...
So let's go back to Parliament and see how Akoto Ampaw answered these questions. What did Akoto say in answer to these questions? I didn't see James Agalga, but let's go on. Let's see Akoto Ampaw.
Mr. Chair, whether gays have a right to demonstrate. If gays do not have a right to demonstrate, if their allies do not have a right to canvass for the change of the law, how will this law ever be changed once it is passed? How? We are saying that as a democratic republic, all laws, even the Constitution, are amenable to change. And they are amenable to change through demonstrations, public advocacy, and so on and so forth. For the bill to seek to position this act into a status completely independent of everything else in Ghana cannot be sustained under the Constitution. And let us note that as far back as 1993-94, in the MPP versus IGP. Adom-Otchere, JSC, as it then was, made the observation that in Ghana, because of the very short history of democracy, people would be shocked to see gay people going out to demonstrate. This is 1992-93 old. This is a Supreme Court judge was saying this. But that he made the point that if we took that position during the slavery period, that abolitionists do not have a right to demonstrate for the abolition of slavery, that women do not have a right to vote, so there should be no because it's the law, and so on and so forth. There cannot be change and progress in society. And it is very important that we must guard jealously the right of people to express themselves for changes in the law and even policies in Ghana. That is why this bill, is violently unconstitutional, in my respectful view. Now, the final point. We are saying there are a number of countries in Africa that have abolished criminalization of LGBT rights and so on. Is there any data showing that procreation has gone down in those countries? Why do we scaremonger? Why? And Hungary, by the way, Hungary cannot be a reference point. Why? Because that country is being driven by ultra-rightist elements who have, no, please. No. I'm talking about Hungary. No, you see, we never...
Excuse me, Mr. Akoto Ampaw.
Yeah.
Honorable, what is it?
Oh.
Well, I have...
expression?
Excuse me, Mr. Akoto Ampaw. This morning, a lot of people have made references to other countries, and that's what he is responding to. So please allow him.
So,